Hi everyone, this is Paul Lang from DTS, and I want to introduce you to what you're about to watch. This is an hour-long event that was presented live to free members of Discipline Trading Strategies. This educational event is called Analogies to Blackjack. When I first began doing this, I was a little worried it might get a little boring, and as I went through it, I came to realize this is really a great presentation. It's going to be in 3 different parts. We're going to define blackjack versus trading versus gambling and what's involved, and the definition actually leads to a great concept in terms of trading. We're also going to talk about a new casino that I went to, and we're also going to talk about whether or not the house is gambling in blackjack. All the concepts, while they may seem a little abstract, really tie into what I would call kind of a definition of trading and what you need to know in order to be successful. If you enjoy this, check out the many other educational videos, articles, and Trade of the Week videos. You can get access to all those at the DTS Free Stuff page. But for now, sit back and enjoy this event. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's event. It's 5 o'clock on the East Coast of the United States and many other places that align north and south with the East Coast of the United States. How's the sound? Can you hear me okay? All right, we all good and ready to go? Boy, the last, the last like hour just kind of flew by. It was like 4:10. I look at the clock, it's 4:55. It's like, wow, where did that go? Analogies to blackjack. So like of a lot of events I do, I have ideas and I start off with a concept and start taking some notes on it and then go, okay, yeah, that's worth an event. And when I first did this, I'll go, okay, I got 3 or 4 good concepts, but maybe this isn't the greatest point to make because a lot of it is kind of, in this definition of gambling thing. And then as I went through this, I became really excited because I think it is kind of really a great topic. And actually the understanding of these analogies I want to talk about, I think are at the very core to understanding trading in some degrees. It's not to say that blackjack is trading or trading is blackjack, but understanding maybe what gambling is to some degree is part of it. And there are a couple of great analogies to blackjack. So there's going to be kind of 3 sections to this. We're going to talk about how trading is gambling. We're going to talk about a new casino I went to, and we're going to talk about what if you're the house. Most of these topics are brand new. I've never talked about before. One of them you maybe heard at, I've alluded to a couple other times. So let's get going for tonight. I thought I'd be well short of an hour tonight, but I'm actually probably going to be right at that 1 hour mark. Here is what you receive in your email, and let me read it because I don't remember what I even said. Over the years, I've been asked the question, is trading gambling? The answer to that question may not be terribly important, but understanding the answer actually raises some good points about your outlook on trading. It may also be helpful to some of you who have to answer that question to friends or family. I will answer that question, and I will also have 2 analogies that I've used over the years that involve the game of blackjack that I think are very helpful to your trading as well. One of them I have not discussed in many years. When people have asked me over the years, if you've ever asked me, my answer has always been the same, just intuitively, instinctively, going back as far as I can remember, because I've been asked, I answered it this way. I said, well, I could argue that it is 100% not gambling, and I could argue that it's 100% gambling. I never really thought much beyond that, other than that was my instinctive answer. It's kind of funny when we go through this, what we're going to find out. So let's begin. And what other way to start with the definition? We're going to start out with the first question. We're going to talk about the first question here. Is trading gambling? What do we do if we want to answer that question? Well, let's just talk theoretically for a minute here. We want to go to the definition. There's different definitions out there about what gambling is. This reminded me when I was doing this about that famous phrase we've heard a lot lately, follow the science. Well, it kind of depends what science you want to follow, right? It's kind of the same thing here. The definition of gambling is kind of different depending on exactly what you look at. So gamble here is kind of the bottom one here. We know, okay, it's to gamble, but the bottom one here, take risky action in the hope of a desired result. Well, that's nice, except the only problem is what is risky? And what is this example here? The British could only gamble that something would turn. What kind of an example is that? Who puts that? Who writes a dictionary and says, boy, for an example of risky action, let's talk about the British hoping something would turn up. What are they talking about? Cooking or the war? I don't know. So anyways, risky. So it begs the question, though, what is risky? And you can see it's underlined in the internet. You actually could click on it. And then it says adjective risky, comparative, objective, blah, blah, blah. Full of the possibility of danger, failure, or loss. It was much too risky to try and disarm. So full of the possibility of loss would be one of the definitions here. So gambling is something that could be risky, and risky has the possibility of loss. Well, let's stop there for a minute. Based on that definition, is trading gambling? That's a real easy answer. You have to answer some of these questions, everybody. Based on that, risk gambling is anything that's risky, and risky is anything that has the possibility of loss. Sure is. I mean, absolutely, positively, based on this definition. Um, but here's the other problem: is that what else is gambling then? Isn't it gambling to go to the store and get a gallon of milk? Isn't that gambling too? Is it gambling to bet with somebody, I'll take 1 through 7 on the roll of the dice, and you take 5 through 12? Is that gambling if you have one extra number in your favor? Is it gambling to bet the sun's going to come up? I'm going to talk more about these in a minute here. Is it gambling to bet the sun's going to come up? Isn't there a possibility you could be wrong? So that's not a very useful definition in my view, because under that definition, and this is where, ironically and miraculously, my off-the-cuff answer has always been just this, meaning, yeah, I could argue that it is gambling because everything in life is a gamble, right? Whatever you do, it's all risk reward. Everything you do is risk reward to some degree. Some of it is such a small thing we don't really consider it. So I went to the next level. And then, by the way, this is really entertaining for me to do this. I had a lot of fun doing this. So let's go to the next level. Well, legally, because now we have to be more specific, right? Because otherwise, police could arrest anybody for doing anything. You're driving to the store, you could get killed doing that. You're going to jail. So what is legally gambling? Well, gambling is when a person bets or risks something of value based on a chance outcome that is out of their control or influence, with the understanding that they will either gain increased value or the original value determined by a specific outcome. Well, that would still pretty much include that trading is gambling because of the line in there. I don't have to go find it, but it's out of their control, right? We don't really have control of what could happen. Anything could happen. But legally circumvents the definition because they just go and name the things that are gambling, right? So legally, they don't have to deal with this. They just kind of bypass the definition and say, look, you can call gambling whatever you want. You can define it however you want, but here's what we do. If you're running dice, if you're betting on horses, you're betting on sports, blah, 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 there's what they define as gambling. So legally, they just pick out the things that are gambling. It doesn't really matter if you want to call it gambling or not. If you play poker with your friends, is that gambling? Actually, it's not gambling under the law because there's some clause about institution that has odds or whatever it was. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not. So let's go to another definition, a little different one. Sorry if I'm boring you here for a minute, but this will get tremendously exciting at any moment. So this is from Merriam-Webster. Gambling, also known as betting or gaming, is wagering something of value, well, that makes sense, on a random event with the intent of winning something else of value where instances of strategy are discounted. Now, there's the key line in there which changes the whole definition. This makes this a whole new definition, meaning that gambling now is only something where there is no concept of strategy. And that kind of enters a whole new meaning to this, right? So that made me think, well, these people that are defining gambling, if you're saying that where's the line? Strategy of discount. If you're saying, well, what if you're saying strategy is not discounted? What if we allow strategy? Does that take it out of the realm of gambling? So I just Googled. I asked, is investing gambling, right? Well, while both investing and gambling involve risk, investing in the stock market is fundamentally different from gambling, as it involves acquiring ownership in real companies with the potential of long-term growth and value creation. Does that definition up there fly with you? Anybody? Yes or no? Does that make sense to you in any way, shape, or form? To say that investing is not gambling because you're investing in companies? Tell that to somebody who bought GE at $80 as it went to $8. Tell me if you bought Peloton at $200 that's not gambling, but betting that the 49ers would beat the Bears opening week of football is gambling, right? Yeah. So that's just a ridiculous additional new definition. That's Search Labs. That's I think that's the internet-driven one. How about the bond market? Investing in the bond market is generally not considered gambling, as it involves taking calculated risks with the expectation of returns over time. So now here to justify bonds, now we're saying that, oh, calculated risks takes it out of the gambling arena. Isn't all this interesting? So now we're kind of changing our definition to include whatever we want to. So it really just depends on, and then I asked for day trading. Is day trading? I kind of thought they'd say it is, but they say day trading involves risk of potential both gains and losses is not typically considered gambling because it involves analysis, strategy, and market knowledge, unlike gambling, which relies primarily on chance. So here we go. So it depends on what definition you want to use, but here we're coming around to, remember I said when I would answer this over the years, I would say, sure, I could argue it's totally gambling. You see why I could say that. And then I can also argue it's totally not gambling, because to me, gambling has some sense built into it of strategy, of what we'd call an edge, or something where you can prove that the odds are in your favor, right? People ask, I've always said, trading is gambling, like a lot of things, or no, it is gambling. After a lot of research, I'm 100% correct. So sure, everything is a gamble. I think the key is from one of the definitions, strategy discounted. Or in other words, do you have some analysis, strategy, or knowledge, as we saw in the investing versus gambling definition? I think that's really what it comes down to. Because if you go back to this slide that I said here, where we first got the definition that gambling is anything that could be risky, which means that you could lose. Driving to the store, you could say is a gamble if you want to, but it's not gambling because the risk of getting killed driving to the store, it's 1 in 10 million that you'll be in an accident, and 1 in 100 million that you'd be in a fatal accident if you're driving 2 miles under 45 miles an hour. And I want milk in my cereal, so the reward to me is great. I want my milk, and the risk. And even if you take it not just for one, like a martingale person would say, what if you had a 1 in 100 chance of dying on the way to the store? Like nobody would go. But a martingale person would say a 1 in 100, that's not going to happen. But over the course of the year, you're going to drive there 100 times and you'll be dead at the end of that year. So, but even if you figure out over the course of your lifetime, there's no way you're going to come close to any statistical number that's going to stop you from driving to the store to get milk. We all know that because we all do it. Let me ask you guys this one here before you all fall asleep on me. I'm going to take a bet with somebody that 1 through 7 on the dice I win, 8 through 12. Oh, absolutely, Robert. My gosh, of course. Yeah. 1 through 7 I win, 8 through 12 they win. This will bring up some more questions. Is that a gamble for me? Am I gambling to say, roll the dice, $100, 1 through 7 I win, 8 through 12 you win? Is that a gamble for me? I get one extra number, not 1 through 6. That'd be 50-50. Is that a gamble? Am I gambling if I say, roll the dice, 1 through 7 I win? Is that a gamble? Real question. Oh, beautiful. Who is that, Mark? Oh, Mark, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I actually have in my notes that the answer to that would be yes, but then I said, what about 100 rolls? I put 100 actually. Unbelievable, yes. On any one roll, if you were going to bet your entire bank account on one roll of the dice, that's extreme gambling, right? Because yeah, 7 out of, but overall, but what if it's 100? Everybody, you guys have said yes, I agree with you. But now I'll go back and say, look, we're going to roll the dice 100 times. Every roll's worth $100. 1 through 7, I win. Is that gambling now? What do you think? Because here we really get at the heart of what I'm trying to get at, which does evolve into trading here in a second. Is that gambling if we do 100 rolls and I get 1 through 7? Is that gambling in your mind now? You people that said yes, especially. Is that still a yes, or is it switched to no now? I asked a dumb question. Yeah, to me now that is, I assume you're saying yes, that is not gambling because I asked a stupid question, but to me that is not gambling anymore. Would you agree with that? That rolling a dice 100 times and I get 1 through 7, we've taken it out of the realm of gambling as we're now kind of defining it, which is to have some kind of probability odds that's somewhat provable. Would you all agree with that? It is not gambling anymore on 100 rolls. Yeah, I think that's obvious because I would do that any day with anybody that wants to. If you don't agree with me, let's get together on the internet or in person, and I'll do this all day long with you because I won't lose, right? It would be statistically impossible, pretty much over 100 rolls. What about the sun coming up? Well, kind of a dumb one because even if you won the bet, you wouldn't know because you'd all be dead, right? Who would bet the sun's not coming up, even with the 1,000,000 odds, because you'd never collect on it? So let's continue this thought as I try to transition you to the trading thought process. So what I got you here to say is kind of right here is that in a stupid definition of gambling, everything's a gamble. In a more reasonable definition of gambling where they tried to justify investing, we come down to some concept of probabilities, of knowledge, right, of things that maybe take it out of just a complete flip of a coin. So you have to take a test on the names and jobs. A real question here for you guys, please answer. I'm not done doing a poll. I just want to see some answers here. You have to take a test on the names and jobs of all the Roman and Greek gods from 2000 BC to 500 AD. And the bet is, will you get 50% correct? You have to take it right now, no studying. Would you take that bet? Yes or no? I'm going to send you a test right now. Greek gods from 2000 BC to 500 AD. Would you take that test? Well, unless there's somebody in the room that just for some reason studied Greek mythology or something in school, most people say no. And why is it? So would that be a gamble to say, yeah, boy, I want to win some money. I'll take a shot at it. That'd be a gamble, right? Because you have no odds of doing that unless you have special knowledge, right? Answer the next one. You have to take a ninth grade algebra test. No prep time. Do you bet you'll get a 50%? Real question. Let me put a thing here. Real question. You have to take a ninth grade algebra test, no prep time. Will you take a bet that you'll get half the questions right? It's multiple choice A, B, C, D. So you have to have some knowledge, true and false, so you can get 50% if you know one answer. Yeah. Now everybody's saying yes. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive because I didn't think everybody would say yes. But why are you saying yes? There's a no. Okay, there's a no. Very good. And what does that revolve on? What does this revolve around? Your answer to the question was, well, it revolves around how much you like math or how much you remember or how well you did in school in math, right? 50% is not a high bar, but if you didn't like algebra, you're not getting 50%, right? So what we're getting into here now, well, let me do the next one too, just for fun. You have to take a fifth grade arithmetic test. No prep time, bet you get 50%. Celeste, you go for that one? You can bet $500 you can pass the fifth grade arithmetic test right now and get 50% right? Still no, okay. Don't like math at all. All right. But here, most everybody would say yes to this, right? Because it's just, fifth grade arithmetic, just adding up, 326 with 428, right? Most people say yes to that. I can get 50% on that test. Most people would say that. Well, what progressed here as we went down? Why are increasing numbers of people going from no, I would never take that bet, to yeah, I'd take that bet, to yeah, I'd absolutely take that bet? What's the progression here? Then don't go on that game show, Robert. You'll lose for sure. What's happening here as we go down the road? What is changing from, boy, that's really gambling in number one, to number three being, oh, that's not a gamble, right? The odds have improved because of knowledge, right? The odds have improved because you have knowledge on the topic, right? Beautiful. I want to take one more step with you before I make the jump. Knowledge, experience, yeah. Let me take one more step here. Here's a confusing one. You ready for this? There's a reason for it, though. But in my mind, there's a reason. I don't think most people think as silly as I do. But you're going to bet on your test results again, okay? This time, you have a week to study. You have a week to study. Big difference. And you're given tests on 6 of the 10 topics. So there's 10 topics below here. And you're going to be tested on 6, but you don't know which 6. So now we're getting into, when I say I'm going to test you on 6, I need 75% to pass. When I start saying you have a week to study, and you're going to get tested on 6, what concept now is introduced to this formula? What concept? And boy, again, this is probably only in my head. What concept is now introduced? There's 10 topics, but you're going to get tested on 6. And you have a week to study. And look at the topics. These are not easy. Birds of South Africa, fishes of Australia, dinosaurs of the Mesozoic area, auto models since 1920, 20 exceptions to the hearsay rule, fruits of Malaysia, the spores of Europe, the rule book of baseball, anatomy of a black hole, and drive to the store. That's supposed to say anatomy of a brain. When I say pass 6 out of 10, no replays. They got rid of the replay. Yeah, it's selection of the subject. What does it imply all of a sudden? Right? This is a lot of work, right? Let's say that the bet's going to be a lot of money, 5,000. That's something worth taking a week to look at, right? Doesn't it introduce the concept a little bit of laziness, maybe, or the mentality? You start to introduce a balancing act between being prepared and some gambling, right? Aren't you introducing in your head the concept of gambling? Do you follow what I'm saying? Because you're saying, you know what? I just can't stand baseball. I'm not going to open the book. And I'm just going to hope that's not going to be one of the 6, right? I don't have time. I can't study all 10. I'm not that smart. I'm not that quick. I'm not that fast, right? So to do well, if you studied, and again, it says somewhere it's not a hard test, right? Yeah, I thought I put this somewhere. It doesn't matter. But 75%. So it's not supposed to be a real difficult test. It just kind of, can you get through this? So if you, I wouldn't ask any tricky questions. Yeah, this is supposed to be a very straightforward test. So the point of it is kind of that if you really apply yourself and you study and you do all 10 subjects, you will pass and you'll win the bet, right? It's not really anymore a gamble. It's a sure thing if you take the time to study. But if you don't take the time to study to the extent that you are falling short of learning 100% of the material, you have now interjected the concept of gambling on this test. Let me say that again, because I know some of you have your head on the desk sleeping while you're listening to me. If I study all of these to my satisfaction, I now have in a position where this is not a gamble to bet any money on this because I'm confident I can win because I have the knowledge, because I've studied, because I know what I'm doing. But to the extent that I fall short of studying, to the extent that I get lazy and don't study all of these things, to that extent, I've introduced the concept of gambling because I'm now hoping that the ones that I'm not so hot on won't show up on the test. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I think I'm I think I'm kind of losing you guys because to me this is so great because we're going to go somewhere with this. So try and go through and simply say what we're coming to is that it's not a gamble if you have the knowledge, experience, the track record, whatever in whatever topic to get beyond the concept of it being just a game of chance, just a flip of a coin type of thing. We call that in gambling. What do we call that in trading? What do we call that in trading? A common word for it that I use a lot that I like. What do we call that in trading? If you just throw a dart at the board and pick any stock that shows up, and if you just flip a coin long or short, it's not really risk. Risk is not the right word at all, actually, because risk is you really have to define risk when you use it because I don't know what risk means in a vacuum. It means a lot of different things. But what do we call it when we've gone beyond just flipping a coin when we pick some stock? Yeah, odds, but there's a very common term in trading that's used all the time. It's in other things too. It's in everything, but yeah, edge, an edge. Yeah, it's an edge. We've gained an edge, right? We have an edge. We know that we have the knowledge that we're beyond the 50-50 mark, and we have enough knowledge that it's taken us beyond the point of gambling. We're not flipping a coin. If you go to a casino and sit down at the blackjack table, you are gambling because you have less than 50-50 odds, unless you're really an expert card counter and pretty smart. So that's absolutely gambling. If you sit down with somebody and say, let's flip a coin all day, you're gambling because there's just absolutely no edge, no odds whatsoever unless you have a weighted coin or something. So blackjack betting, basic strategy, card counting, money management, putting odds. That's a great question, Don. I'm kind of going to get to that in a minute at the end, if you don't mind, just holding off on that question, because it's actually something that really perplexed me a little bit. I'm going to deal with what you said exactly in just a few minutes. But first of all, let me take it to trading. Okay? Is trading gambling? So, what if you're trading and you say, I know what an uptrend is, right? Is that an uptrend? I know what an uptrend is. Is that an uptrend? Just kind of a yes, no question. Yeah, okay. This next bar is going to be a big green bar. Would you go long when we trade above the prior bar's high? Would you go long that uptrend because it's an uptrend? Yeah, right. Mark knows. He's experienced here. Yeah, absolutely not. So I know what an uptrend is, but you don't. That's not a viable uptrend. And a lot of traders don't have the knowledge they do. Of course, you can see where I'm getting to here, right? Is that if you just have average knowledge, you are gambling. You are gambling because just the only exception is just big picture long-term people who are following the trend and don't touch anything, right? The old just put it away and invest for 20 years type of thing. As long as the market goes with you, you'll be okay. But other than that, from day to day, you don't have any edge at all if you don't have really superior knowledge. A lot of people look at that chart and say, yeah, I love it. I wouldn't touch that for $1 million. It's not going to work. I know it's not going to work. Or people say, how about this? I know moving averages, right? The mighty moving average crossover. Should we go long on the mighty moving average crossover? Anybody want to go long there? I've Googled this. This is a very reliable thing, Mike. Don't make fun of this. This is a very reliable concept, right? You see where I'm going though, right? People who use a mighty moving average crossover are gambling. They're just totally gambling. They don't want to really study or put in the time to understand. It's like back to that thing I had with this. This is why I kind of did this, right? In other words, again, my mind works really funny. I apologize. I'd love to hear some input if you think I'm nuts or if this really makes sense to you. But this to me is trading. See, here's trading. Here's trading. In other words, you're going to take a test. You need to know all 10 of these things really well, right? And most traders come to the market and they know 3 of these things, kind of a half-butt knowledge of them. They're gambling. They're gambling. And I just see this so much clearer because I see and talk to these people all the time that are gambling in the market and they just don't get it. And it's just chart after chart, it's garbage after garbage. It's like you just are never in the long term. Just like you want to bet on flipping a coin heads, you may win 3 in a row. That can happen. But come back to me after 100 throws and tell me where you are because you're not going to be there. And I just see that time after time and time again. There's a mighty moving average crossover. What does that mean when moving averages cross? Anybody? We have any technically astute people? What does it mean when moving averages cross? And if you want to qualify your answer by telling me what moving average is, simple, exponential, give me the numbers, whatever, that's fine. That happens to be the 20 and the 40 simple on there. What does it mean when moving averages cross? Well, Kramer doesn't look at those, does he? I haven't heard Kramer's voice in a decade, but he doesn't look at charts, does he? Dale almost has the answer. Dale's very close to the answer. It's absolutely, positively nothing. Yeah, it means absolutely nothing when they cross. Just complete random event. It's like looking at your car window and looking out your office window and saying, "Oh, there's a green car. I'm going to go long," right? It's like island in the streams. A new club? Would you send me the info? I'd like to sign up. Just tell you what, Chris, just sign me up, would you? I'll pay you back. Just sign me up for it. Give me my email address. Moving average crossover mean absolutely nothing. But again, to some people, and I was going to do a couple more right here, but I figured you get the point, right? To me, this is so clear because I see this all the time. Charts being sent to me that just say, "Oh, I like this chart because of blah." Yeah, okay, yeah, it kind of has blah, and it has 72 things that are against it, right? You got to know all this stuff because, as often said, even at its best, we don't have great odds trading, in my view. Anybody want to disagree with that? Well, I would. I'd I'd trust a croissant more than I would Kramer would. So I could go on and on with examples here, but it would just bore you. Just the point simply being that when you really understand things, you put everything together, and you look at charts, you look at the 4 appropriate time frames. You look at your understanding of support. I was going to put one in here for support and resistance because that's one of the favorite topics. People don't get it all. When you put in here a true understanding of support and resistance, you put in here an understanding of extension. You put in here an understanding of how 4 time frames interact in the right way to give you the right stuff. To put in here relative strength and weakness and market correlation and timing. And you put all these things together and you try and whittle through and come out with the top 1 or 2 out of 100 symbols that are the best things. And then we have okay odds, but they're still not great, right? I never look at a trade and would go, "Oh, that's 90% is going to, give me 2 to 1 trade." But you can never do that. Never, never. So that's why the other things become so important. It's why management becomes so important. Because management is what locks in those odds that you have. And of course, what most traders do is, number one, they don't have the odds. It's like they're sitting at a blackjack table, they're fighting the odds. But even if they get over the edge in the odds, right, here's that 50% mark, even if they get over the edge through their technical skill, what happens then? In other words, they can pick charts that more often than not are the right thing, in the right direction, and maybe in a reasonable area. So they cross that knowledge line of 50% where they can actually say, you know what, the trades I'm picking, more winners than losers in terms of where they go. But what happens to them then? It's just the management after that, right, that falls apart. Because you can come in and take your little winner and give it up. You can take a loser and make it huge. All kinds of stuff can happen to you. So it's this whole process of finding, managing the entry, managing to the target, managing the stop, all these things that come together. And when you do it all just right, we have an edge. We have an advantage. We have knowledge that over time we'll make money. And then you prove it by doing it and making money consistently. But doing that whole process involves a fairly small edge. I'm going to move on to my next topic here. This next one will excite you a little bit. Are there any questions on this progression of, gambling versus trading and how we get to where we are? I don't think there are any questions. Let me go to number 2 of my 3 things tonight. I'm not going to ask, as anybody might be embarrassed. I assume you all know how to play blackjack. I mean, most people learn them when they're a kid, but let me just explain it to you real quick. In case you don't, blackjack is real simple. You can play just with 2 people if you want to. And all it is that the dealer gets 2 cards and you get 2 cards. And you don't see one of the dealer's cards. And the idea is that you want to get as close as you can to 21 without going over. If you go over 21, you automatically lose. So if your 2 cards are a 10 and a 10, you got 20, you got a great hand, you just stay. That's what blackjack is. All there's to it. And you can take a hit. In other words, if you have a 6 and a 3, then you would take a hit, because if you get a face card as 10, you'd have 19, and that'd be a good hand. So that's all blackjack is, real simple. So here's how blackjack is dealt on a table if you're in a casino or something, where everybody's dealt their cards and the dealer is dealt 1 card down, 1 card up. I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. In most casinos, you place your bet, put your bet out there, right? And then the cards are dealt. Once the cards are dealt, you see your cards, you see one of the dealer's cards. You don't know what the dealer has down, right? Obviously, you don't know what he has down, or else you would know what to do with your hand. So I went to this casino a couple months ago. You guys ready for this? Anybody play blackjack out there? I went to this casino where, and tell me how much you think this is great. New casino. It actually is pretty new. It just opened a year ago. It deals the cards first, and then you place your bet. So you don't have to put your bet out here. You deals the cards. You see the dealer's up card, and then you decide how much to wager. And you can put nothing if you want, or a nickel, or you can put the table max, whatever it is. What do you think about it? It seems to me that's a nice advantage, isn't it? You guys like that? Anything wrong with that? Can anything go wrong with that, really? Maybe it's not that big of a deal. And we're done. I'll give you the address if you want. If you want to go down to mid Florida, they're doing pretty well. They get a lot of business. Seems odd. That's all you guys have to say about this? A casino where you bet after you see the up card? Maybe some of you have never played blackjack before. Well, that's an interesting take. I like your take on things, John, that if they're doing it, it's got to be good for them, right? But I don't think you play blackjack, because this is obviously incredible advantage to us. I don't think you could play stupidly enough, Eric. I don't think you could play stupidly enough. This what I just said here, I'm sorry, I lied to you because I'm making a point. There is no casino that there is no casino that could ever do that. They would be out of business on the first night, because it would be incredible winning hands. Yeah, you were right, Eric, when you said you don't think that's true. I just made it up. That could never exist. They'd be out of business instantly, because it would be a huge advantage. Could you imagine if you got to see the exact odds before you placed your bet, rather than placing your bet and then seeing the odds? That's a tremendous advantage. What's my point of doing this? This is a great point. I just love this point. Analogy to trading. Yeah, exactly. Does anybody ever get a phone call from their broker in the morning and says, "Hey, you're day trading. You're about to place your first trade. All right. How much are you risking on that trade?" And Chris goes, "How much are I risking? I don't even know what stock it is. I don't even know what the setup is. I don't know what the market's doing. No, I got to know. How much are you risking? 100, 500, $2,000. How much are you risking?" And Chris is like, "Leave me alone. I don't know." Right? In trading, don't we get to see all the cards before we place our bet? Don't we get to see at least the dealer's up card? Maybe not all the cards, but we get to see the dealer's up card, right? We get a peek into the odds before we place our bets, right? You remember that even in my make-believe example, the dealer still has a down card, right? So we didn't see everything. But Don't we have that in trading? We don't know everything, but don't you know the odds for the day before you start day trading? Don't you know the odds for that period of time before you start long-term trading? Don't we know that? How many people actually take advantage of that? And what a great time to be asking after the last 2 weeks, right? Well, we have the same charts, but I just simply mean, how many of you take advantage of the fact that we get to see the dealer's up card? You pull up in the morning, we had a huge drop the day before, the market's gapping down. Are we heading lower? Are we heading higher? Everything's oversold, everything's overbought, blah, 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 whatever it is. And you look around and you say, if you're, whether you're long term, if you're long term, do you remember the feeling when you found like that setup? Right? Like, whoa, there it is. That's what I look for, man. This is great. If you're day trading, do you remember the last time like you looked at the screen in the morning or at 10 o'clock or whenever you act and say, wow, what a perfect thing. That's just what I do, right? See, that's what we get to do when we're trading. We don't have to take a trade. The professionals in the market, they have to trade all the time, no matter what's going on. They got to sit there trading in and out, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to do that. We can sit back and say, I'm going to wait for a better time. Right? Those in the room, yesterday, 2 of the 3 days, I wasn't even at the screen in the morning. I like the mornings, right? But Mirna's right. One day I left till 10:30. I'm not going to look at it. And one day I was even later than that, right? Because I didn't know the dealer's up card. I didn't know what was going on. I was dumb, blind, and stupid. Yet here's the problem. How many of you sit there and trade anyhow as a day trader when the odds are just heavily against you? And when I say heavily against you, I don't know if that's the right wording. When you don't have an edge, when you don't have the odds in your favor. Anytime you don't have the odds in your favor, you shouldn't be trading. And if you're just long term, it's the same thing, right? If you're just jumping into something because somebody told you on TV, oh boy, that's a bargain there. You just better buy that now. Market always comes back. Yeah, it always does come back. Sometimes it takes 17 or 19 years. I'm not so sure that's where you want to be sitting. So this is a huge point to me, is just understanding all the time, objective, level-headed, understanding what your odds are at all the time. Now, you never know your odds. Just like in this stupid example I'm giving you, we don't know the dealer's down card. Not many of you play blackjack because anybody who played blackjack would immediately do what Eric did and say, you're making this up because it's not, or maybe you're just being polite to me. But it's such incredible odds to know the dealer's up card that, you would immediately know I'm lying to you because there's no way that could ever exist. But we do have that in trading, right? We don't see the bottom card. We don't know everything that's going on, but we see the odds for certain days, right? And especially if you trade stocks and you see a bunch of individual setups, we really get good odds at times, and that's exactly what it's all about. That's my only one slide on issue number 2. I hope you liked it. I can tell I like this presentation a heck of a lot more than most of you do probably, but that's okay. And here's the last one. And this kind of gets to, I'm sorry, I forgot who asked the question a second ago, but if you want to repost your question in a minute when I'm done talking, we can talk about it, but maybe I'm going to answer it here. Number 3, is it gambling if you're the house? Oh, that's supposed to be covered up. Is it gambling if you're the house? Is it gambling if you're the house? I want to cover that up, but I have nothing to cover it up with. Is it well, again, under our evolved definition of gambling, right? In the beginning, we said everything's gambling. But under our evolved, do you have an edge? Do you have a track record? Do you have probabilities with you? Is it gambling for the house? Ah, okay. So you're saying, Chris, that the house in blackjack has slim odds, which they do, right? It's 52 to 51% or something like that, right? It's a business, but they have slim odds, right? And this is my point in trading. Remember in trading, I said I feel even at our best, we have marginal odds. You have to be really good to get some fair odds in your favor, right? A casino has not great odds, right? Just 1 or 2% better than a flip of a coin, right? Now, as long as you run things properly, I'd have to say it's not gambling. Because look at the casinos, right? They all make a ton of money in general. At least the casino part makes money, right? But what if the casino doesn't hire properly and they end up hiring dealers that are involved with other people and cheat? What if they don't keep up their camera system? What if they don't hire security that know what they're doing? What if they don't do all these things that help preserve that little 1 or 2% margin? Well, it's the same thing with us trading. It's the same thing. Yeah, we have the edge as long as we protect that edge that we have. And for us, there's only one way, and that's understanding charts. There is no other way. If you are listening to news, you are not gaining an edge, you're losing an edge. If you're listening to news or trying to understand what's going on in the world, in the market, tariffs or anything else, if you're reading news to understand that, you've lost your edge completely. Do you understand that, everybody? Because you cannot read what's going on and tell me what to do tomorrow. It's not possible. It's impossible. There's no concept there. What we want to see is what the rest of the smart thinking world people have done after digesting that news, whatever it is. That's what charts are. So if we don't keep up on our knowledge of charts, if we don't follow the discipline, if we don't manage properly, we lose that fairly small edge that we have. Questions? Because I just have one more thing to go over. Believe it or not, well, you guys are asking no questions at all, so that's why we're going a little quick. Questions on any of this? Any comments? Who typed the comment up there along these lines? Did I answer it? Don. So blackjack betting using basic strategy, card counting, and money management puts the odds. Yeah, well, here's an interesting conundrum I had is I know somebody that allegedly makes good money playing blackjack, and I don't personally verify that. I'm just saying seems to be telling the truth, seems to be true. And if you Google it, it seems to be pretty substantiated that yes, there are professional blackjack players that make money, right? So then that begs the question a little bit. If one person can make money, couldn't many learn to do that? And if so, does the house lose their edge totally? Obviously, it's not the case. See, I a little bit doubt the validity of making your living in a blackjack. And I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you don't. But if you can, then others can, and then the house loses and the house doesn't lose. So maybe the house does a good job. I mean, the way you get an edge is by card counting, and maybe the house identifies card counting and just throws you out if you win too much. I guess they have the right to do that, right? Yeah, it's a lot of work, and then your reward typically is, right, if you win too much, they just throw you out, I assume, right? Isn't that what happens? Because I believe they have the right to do that. Let me, yeah, yeah, they have the right to just ban them, right, for no reason at all. I've certainly seen that in enough movies, Kumar, right? I've seen enough movies where they just ban the person. Let me, I'm going to close on one other thing. Anybody know my favorite movie for trading? If you absolutely know it because you heard me say it, give everybody else a chance. What's my favorite movie for trading? Favorite movie for trading. Favorite useful, not entertaining. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. On the free stuff page, I have favorite book, favorite movie. And the favorite movie to me is 21. All the other movies are worthless. I mean, you know, Wall Street and Wolf of Wall Street, blah, blah, blah. They're all entertaining, but you don't learn anything from them. I mean, you know, what do you learn? Short airplanes when they crash, don't buy them. I don't know. Whatever. There are no lessons there to me. They're just entertaining movies. But there's a huge lesson in this. Yeah, number one, the movie's called 21, and it's based on a book called Taking Down the House. I often get a word wrong in there. I believe it's Taking Down the House. And they made a movie out of it. Yeah, Kevin Spacey's the head guy, and I don't know. I don't think there's anybody else that's a big name in it. It's a great movie to watch. I mean, it's you know, it's a top movie in me just to watch it for fun. And in that movie, to me, is the single most important thing you can learn in trading. So what I want you to do is rent the movie and watch the whole movie, right? Bringing down the house. Yeah, you're right. I say taking all the time. Last time I think Pierce corrected me. So I always say it wrong. So it's taking down the house. And watch the movie. You know, go. It's probably free or rent it for a couple bucks wherever you get your movies from. Watch the whole movie and see if you can understand the one scene. There's a 3-minute clip to me. And to understand the clip, you have to watch the whole movie. So on the website, I have the 3-minute clip. But don't watch the 3-minute clip now. I know you're all going to cheat and watch the 3-minute clip. Oh, yeah, I get it. It's very helpful if you watch the whole movie, go through it, think to yourself, okay, what's the lesson here that Paul's so adamant about? And then you probably will know it. And then come back and watch the 3-minute clip. Because when you watch the 3-minute clip, to me, your whole trading career depends. Your whole career depends on whether or not you ever have the look on your face that guy does in the clip. Has anybody already done all this and seen it and knows what I'm talking about? Do you agree with me? What percentage do you agree with me if you've seen the movie and you know what clip I'm talking about? Certainly some of you. Yeah. 100%, right? 100%. 100%. If you ever are the guy in the movie, you're done as a trader. I have time for questions. I am done. I hate to say it, I'm done. I'm actually done early. I don't know how that happened. You guys are kind of quiet. Questions? Is the upcoming schedule for the rest of April here? Next Wednesday, a week from today, is the Platinum member meeting, bi-weekly scanning, and then Easter's coming up. A week from Friday is Good Friday. Markets closed again. Easter weekend, 3-day weekend, and then the following weekend we start up with the seminar, live seminar program, full blown, full day for each class type of thing. We have any questions or anything you guys want to talk about? It was a quiet group that Wednesday evening. Somebody's typing, last call, last chance. Oh, Don, I totally anticipated it. I went long right at the bottom. I got a text from Trump. He gave me a little guidance on that. That's why it's nice to be in the room. I get those texts from Trump about 5 minutes ahead of time. We played every move. No, I had a really good day. It's obviously what the chart says. This engulfs 2 days is very bullish. But we have a very, very market that's a knee-jerk reactive to news right now. So you just got to be aware of that. It's very knee-jerk reactive to news. It's an extremely bullish day. We're almost back. I didn't even look at the market when it closed, but we're almost back to, the pre-tariff meltdown. Everything down to everything until March 26th was just a normal chart, nothing wrong. We had meltdown the next couple of days and the 2 huge days down. And we're actually back to where we closed on the date I just gave you, at least in the QQQ. I haven't really looked at much yet. Anyways, who asked about today? We had a good day today in the room. Actually, before this happened, I really had a good day, but I really mismanaged 2 things. I had 2 big winners, and I was piggy on one, and I cheated the other one, just what I would yell at people for a little bit. And in the afternoon, we were long a little bit, so it was a nice day. Small caps? Small caps are a little lagging. Nothing critical though. Yeah, I had an edge. Anything else? All right. If you're in the room, see you tomorrow. If you're just free members, I'll see you next Monday scanning, I believe. And Platinum, we'll see you a week from today. Have a good night, everybody. Good trading tomorrow.